Bismillah Rahman Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning, Minister
Assalamu
Umar.
alaikum. Good morning.
Minister Umar, thank you for joining me on the Voice of Canada Urdu News.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for giving me the opportunity, and it's nice to see you virtually.
Yes. First of all, I like to congratulate you on your new portfolio as Minister of Transport.
Thank you very much. Look, let me just say how honored I am to have been selected by the Prime Minister to be the Minister of Transport. It's a great honor. And I reflect on this saying, thinking about my journey as an immigrant to Canada. I never ever dreamed a day in my life to become a federal minister in a country that I immigrated to. But over the last 30 years since I've arrived to Canada, I've had so many opportunities and so many challenges. But it's to the greatness of this country, it's to the generosity of Canadians, where I was able to complete my education, to succeed in the private sector, and now have an opportunity to be a federal minister. It's a great, great story that I think all Canadians should be proud of.
So nice of you. Minister, could you please tell us about your role as minister and your mandate priorities?
Sure. As a federal minister of transport, I regulate. My priority is to ensure the safety of modes of transportation, and modes of transportation include vehicles and surface modes, to rail, to air transportation, to marine transportation. And my priority to ensure that there are safety measures to ensure that Canadians and passengers and cargo are safe. And workers as well who work in these transportation. Your viewers will know that our country is a bit complicated in governance because we have provincial authority and we have federal authority. So I work as well in collaboration with my provincial counterparts on regulating those modes of transportation. So that's the rough broad outline. My specific mandate that came from the Prime Minister has several components to it. One of the most important component is making sure that we cut emissions from transportation. As you may know, we're all doing our best to combat climate change. And the cause of climate change are emissions, and many of those emissions come from transportation. So from vehicles, from buses, from planes. So that is a priority of mine, to work with the industry on finding ways to cut emissions, as well as making sure right now we're dealing with COVID. So we're making sure that we have a regulatory framework that respects and protects the health and safety of Canadians. Certainly issues of oceans protections, infrastructure for trade, that's a priority of mine. I'm also working with my colleague, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, on learning lessons from the tragedy of PS 752. This is the Ukrainian airline that was shot down by Iran. So there are a variety of areas that I'm focused on, and this is just to give you a summary or a flavor of these issues that I'm focused on. Thanks.
Okay. What are the updates on travel restrictions? You know, a lot of people they are planning to visit their loved ones out of country, and there are a lot of people they are planning to come back to Canada, and the restrictions are you have to stay at least 3 days and maybe 14 days quarantine in the hotel, and people they can't afford. Actually, they are complaining we can't afford $2,000 to pay.
Yeah.
And what are the updates, and how you people are easing down the problems of the people?
Look, thank you for that question, because I know some people are concerned, but I can tell you that these measures are necessary to protect the health of Canadians. Canadians over the last several months have been sacrificing a lot in order to protect against the spread of COVID. You know, this COVID-19 has arrived without an instruction manual. All of us, all governments are trying to do our best to protect against this deadly virus. We have seen the impact of the virus. And this year, earlier this year, we've seen a new twist to this virus with the variants that have proven to be more infectious and spread easily. So we had travel restriction measures last year, but we decided, given the advice of public health, that we need to add new measures. And these new measures really are guided by the concept of asking all Canadians to avoid non-essential travel. So it's not meant to punish anybody. It's meant to restrict travel, because now is not a good time for travel. I know people have reasons to travel. I understand. But look, in Ontario, we're asking people not to visit families who live next door to them. So we're asking people also to postpone trips right now. I know they have families, but please postpone your trip. These measures are temporary. They're not permanent. I'm not able to say when will they be lifted, but I'm hoping they'll be lifted as the vaccine rollout is taking place. So I hope to see, at least if they're not fully lifted, eased. But for now, they are necessary measures to protect Canadians. And I ask everyone who's impacted by this to be patient, and hopefully they can find an ability to postpone their trips until things get better in the near term.
Minister, due to expected inflow of new 1.2 million new immigrants until 2023, what is government plan to tackle the traffic issues on highways and the roads? Sure.
Look, let me just say the immigration has been a great source of economic and social prosperity in Canada. Immigrants like you and I are playing an important role, and like your viewers, in building this country, in creating wealth, in creating prosperity, in creating jobs, but also in enhancing the richness of our country, culturally, socially, and on so many levels. So immigration is a vital part of future prosperity of our country. You're right, with immigration, there are, yes, good opportunities, but also some challenges that the government needs to prepare for. By the way, including creating settlement assistance, including helping newcomers integrate, find jobs, create more jobs for newcomers, etc. So you're right. And the issue of traffic is important, by the way, whether we have newcomers or not, because I just told you earlier, one of the things that we're working on is cutting emissions from transportation. And the best way of doing that is creating a better public transportation system. I think the solution, in my mind, is not to build more roads, but is to find ways for people to use convenient, fast, efficient public transportation.
Would you like to share the updates on Mississauga and Brampton mass transit project?
Sure. So look, and I was talking earlier about the importance of public transit. Your viewers know, and I spoke earlier about the various levels of government. So it is the provincial government, along with the municipal governments, that is responsible for urban planning, including local public transportation. So issues like My Way in Mississauga, the Mississauga Transit is governed by the city, but is also supported by the province. And we're, in Mississauga, we're building an LRT along Ontario that is funded by the provincial government. But there's a role for the federal government. So the federal government can help support some of those fundings. So earlier last week, we announced almost a $15 billion fund for public transit. So that fund is going to support initiatives for local public transit, like the city of Brampton has, like the city of Mississauga has. So including new transit. And by the way, we just announced last month funding for Mississauga rapid bus transit along Lakeshore. So we'll fund new project, but also we'll help electrify buses. So buses that use fuels that generate a lot of emissions. Now we're finding ways to replace these buses with electric buses with zero emissions. So yes, we have a role at the federal government, but we're very much guided by the needs of the local government and the provincial government.
Okay, wish you good luck, Minister, and we will keep in touch in the future for more questions. Thank you so much for the time being.
Thank you for the opportunity and have a wonderful day.